7 scientific reasons a zombie outbreak would fail. Let's pretend for a moment that zombies are real, as half of you aren't already daydreaming that as is. Hell, I wish that would occur sometimes. Have you noticed that most zombie movies take place only after the apocalypse is in full swing? By the time we join our survivors, the military and government has already been wiped out and none of the streets are safe. There's a reason the movie starts there, not earlier. It's because the early part, where we go from one zombie to millions, doesn't make any sense. So, if you let the creeping buzzkill of logic into the zombie party, you realize the zombies would be re-dead long before you even get a chance to fire up that chainsaw motorcycle you've been working on. But why? Well, let's get to it then. We'll start with number 7. Zombies have way too many natural predators. Do you know why, as humans, we are on top of the food chain? Not because we're hard to kill, well, with the exception of Steven Seagal. We're not. We're little more than tasty flesh bags waiting for an errant horn or claw to spill our guts like a meat piñata. No, we're on top of us simply because we are so absurdly good at killing things ourselves. A good offense, as they say, is the best defense. We are simply too smart and well too armed for any wild animal to hunt. Now consider the poor zombie. It lacks every single advantage that has kept humanity from being eaten to extinction. It wanders around in the open. It can't use weapons. It can't think or use strategy. It doesn't even have the sense of self-preservation to run and hide when it's in danger. And it's made entirely out of food. It's easy prey for any animal that wants it. Bears, lions, tigers, whatever. If you're saying, sure, but that's not like my city, because it's not full of bears that can come and eat all the zombies, you need to think smaller. Insects are a major pain in the ass for living humans, and in some cases, being able to swat flies away and having an immune system is the only thing keeping us from having our eyes and tongues eaten out by maggots. Zombies in any part of the world with a fly problem are going to be swarming with maggots in short order, meaning that most of their soft tissue will be infested and their eyes will be quickly useless. But hey, let's scale up a bit. In America alone, we have bears, wolves, coyotes, cougars, all of which, can put well-armed, thinking, fast-moving humans on the menu. If the conditions are right, to most predators, the right conditions are when the animal is weak or infirm, or otherwise generally unable to defend themselves, like a walking corpse. Hell, just thinking of the millions of stray dogs out there who will quickly learn that zombies are an easy meal. Now imagine zombie hordes wandering Africa. Between lions and Cape buffalo and hippos, rhinos, and elephants, we'd finally have a disease that Africa is better suited than the rest of the world to defend itself against. Number 6, they can't take the heat, scientifically. It's generally accepted by zombie experts that they're going to continue to rot, just like any other normal, rotting dead body. Even as they shamble around the streets, what the movies fail to convey, however, is the gruesome yet strangely hilarious effect that the hot sun has on a rotting corpse. The first concern is putrefaction. Thanks to a plethora of bacteria we use in our colon digestive plant matter called gut flora, our bodies are ripe for decay the second our heart stops, since the Heat speeds the growth of the bacteria, which plenty are happy to start feasting on you once your immune system is no longer concerned. The zombies got a looming expiration date the very second it turns. Dead bodies below, because the gas is created by the bacteria, meaning that in warmer areas, you know, specifically like Florida or something like that, are going to start getting fat in the first few days. After a few weeks of this, the nasty bloated zombie army is going to start doing something that is simultaneously the most awesome but disturbing thing a zombie can do. They will start literally exploding. The warm, moist conditions in the tropical, subtropical parts of the world, or even in the summer, you know, temperature parts, such as even here, you know, but definitely like Florida or something like that, speeds this condition. Meaning a July zombie in northern Michigan would pretty much, you know, anywhere, would be over in a few weeks just by virtue of the rampaging monsters bursting like rancid meat balloons. At the other end of the spectrum is dry heat. If you're in Phoenix or Sahara when the apocalypse hits, the zombies might begin to mummify in, in the blazing sun and heat. While the normal symptoms of dehydration are not concern for zombie, there is a problem of desiccation, which, with no reasonable means of replenishing the water in their cells, zombies walking around in the Texas heat all day are going to suffer cell damage due to direct sun exposure to their skin. And thanks to the drying effect wind has, and the southwestern dead will stumble around and more inefficiently until at some point they simply drop and wait for the scavengers to come pick them up for the annual Slim Jim harvest. So they better hope the outbreak happens during the winter, right? Right? Well, number 5. They can't handle the cold. Man, they really do have every disadvantage, don't they? Zombies are dead meat. No arguing that. It's their one defining characteristic. But everybody focuses on the dead part like it's a huge deal. They often forget the meat. Do you know what else is dead meat? Steak, hamburger, possibly even red grease, much inside of the Taco Bell food. Anyways, when flesh is alive, it's got all sorts of defense systems to keep it that way. When it's dead, you have to throw it away in about a week, even if you seal up the plastic and keep it moderately temperatured. Now, your first inclination may be to think of the cold as dead meat's friend. After all, the surest way to defeat that week-long deadline is to freeze steak, keeping it fresh for months. But don't forget, unregulated cold does awful shit to formerly living things. If you live far enough north, like northern Michigan or Canada, you know, the zombie apocalypse will probably work itself out the first time it tries to go outside. The first zombie killer is the simple fact that the human body is mostly water, and water freezes. Once the temperature drops to freezing or near it with a high wind chill, zombies will become significantly more rigid. After enough exposure, a dead's body is going to be frozen solid and not chasing down any screaming victims, no matter how delicious and rascal scooter bound they might be. It's also safe to assume that zombies wandering around in a wintry wonderland are not going to be wrapped airtight in plastic like we do with food, so freezer burn comes as a serious issue. Seriously, no joke. The same thing that ruins your ice cream also ruins the undead onslaught. The freezing water, which is in the flesh at night, combined with the partial thaw during warmer days, then refreezing again, sets up for perfect conditions on the onset of freezer burn, which results in cells dehydrating as water evaporates, even when frozen solid. Freezer burn meat isn't just dead, it's literally destroyed. And now number 4. This is more common sense, but it's scientifically proven as well. Biting is a terrible way to spread disease. Hey, remember that time that the dog got rabies and then a day later every single other dog on the continent had it, except for the small band of survivors hidden in the basement? No? That never happened? What? Anyways, nearly all zombie movies agree on one thing. They reproduce like a disease, one that spreads via a bite from the infected, like they have a various virus carried by zombie saliva or whatever. But this also means their spread should be subject to the same rules of a normal epidemic. And biting is a shitty way to get the epidemic going. The successful diseases have some really clever way to, invisibly spread from, one victim to another. The flu has killed tens of millions because it floats right through the air. The Black Plague was spread by fleas, etc. Not a single one of them requires the infected to get within biting distance to spread their infections. Sure, sexually transmitted diseases like AIDS work that way, but that's only because the infected can pass for the uninfected. Nobody's going to be having sex with a zombie. Or at least I'd hope not. But let's say there is an outbreak, like if one zombie bites 30 people in the crowd at an Insane Clown Posse concert before they figured out it wasn't a part of the show. It's not like mankind is just utterly confused about what to do when an infection breaks out. In America, you have the Center for Disease Control, otherwise known as the CDC, who don't tend to fuck around. Seriously, it's on their business cards. Remember the SARS outbreak that originated in China? The CDC and the World Health Organization put the clamps down to international travel the second it was found out to have spread to North America. Flights were grounded, travel between borders was locked tight, and only 43 people on the entire continent died. With zombieism, they don't even have to solve the mystery about how it's transmitted. It's the guy biting people. Shoot him. Number 3. They can't heal from day-to-day damage. One advantage of a fully functioning central nervous system is that it also does a damn good job of letting you know that you've been damaged by way of pain, cold, heat, etc. Think about all the paper cuts, stub toes, and nut shots you received in your life. Now imagine if they never healed. You just sat there rotted while you continued to rack up other paper cuts, stub toes, and nut shots. Pretty much every wound you ever had would end up with an amputation. One thing we know from zombies, from Romeo and Juliet, is that they are clumsily lot walking into doors and helicopter blades without a second thought about what damage they are suffering. While complete insensitivity to pain seems like an awesome superpower in theory, in real life you wind up being more like Mr. Burns than Wolverine. Congenital insensitivity to pain is a neurological condition that some are born with, meaning they don't feel pain. They can feel everything else, but the absence of pain means they're more acute to damage to their bodies, but being unaware of it. Even with the ability to call for help, loved ones watching them, and watching out for their coddling, of society, this means they can still lead to all the terrible shit, like infected body parts, bitten off pieces of tongue, all dings and bangs zombies will suffer after tripping, walking off of bridges, and stumbling around on a dark, cloudy night, which will eventually leave them limbless, toothless, and with every bone in their body broken. Seriously, in the event of a zombie apocalypse, just stay inside and watch all episodes of 24 back to back. Then walk out on your lawn with your corpse rake and tidy up. Because it's that simple. Number 2. This is more environmental, however it's still science related. The landscape is full of zombie-proof barriers. The zombies lack coordination along with the inability to see in the dark. As such, we haven't seen any inferior zombies yet, but holy shit, we call dibs on that. Okay, so basically, it's going to spell doom for the countless zombies in any area outside of a parking lot. This is a group that doesn't even know how to find roads, bridges. They just go wandering off aimlessly. Mountains, major rivers, canyons, thus quickly can be home to piles of broken zombie rags, stinking up the scenic views. Even if zombies had the foresight to not walk over the cliffs or raging rapids during the day, nightfall would result in most eventually walking into rivers, over the cliffs, and off the bridges, diminishing their numbers. But even in a nice flat paved city area where it would seem like people would be extra fucked, the landscape still works in their favor of living. History has shown that the most awful situations, people don't always act like the panicky idiots in the horror movies. In cities, people would likely congregate in the upper levels of high-rising buildings where the invasion can be held at bay with simple security doors. Also, the streets themselves would keep, the undead correlate in straight, easy-to-aim down lines, where they could be easily picked off by snipers or gangsters or just bored office workers waiting out the quarantine by dropping office supplies onto the undead from the top floors. And lastly, number 1, weapons and people who use them. As I touched briefly above on number 2, if Homo sapiens are good at one damn thing, it's killing other things. We're so good at it, we've made entire other species cease to exist without even trying. Add to the mix the sheer number of armed rednecks and hunters out there, and the zombies don't even stand a chance. There were over 14 million people hunting with a license in the US in just 2004. At a minimum, that's like the armed force with the size of the Great Los Angeles area. Remember, the whole reason hunting licenses exist is to limit the number of animals you're allowed to kill, because if you just declared free reign for everybody with a gun, everything in the forest would be dead by sundown. Even the trees would be mounted proudly above the late arriving hunters' manatees. It's just safe to assume that when the game changes from 3 deer to all rotting dead people trying to eat us, there will be no shortage of volunteers. Plus, if we look at zombies as a species, they're pretty much designed for failure. Their main form of reproduction is also their only source for food and their top predator. If they want to eat or reproduce, they have to go toe-to-toe with the number of one predator at a single time. That's like having to fight a lion every time you want to have sex or make a sandwich. Actually, it's worse than that. Most top predators are only armed with teeth and claws, meaning they have to put themselves in harm's way to score a kill. Humans have rifles. The zombies have no choice but to walk into bullets. And this isn't even counting all the household handguns in the world, nor the fact that zombies have also, have to deal with and contend with IEDs, Molotov cocktails, baseball bats, crowbars, and cars that the general public will no doubt use to be using their cull, in numbers. And that's just from a civilian population. Counting the military and police, we'll have another 3 million or so armed people, expertly trained people, mind you. And instead of just handguns and shotguns and hunting rifles, they'll have machine guns, combat shotguns, sniper rifles, assault rifles, submachine guns, grenade launchers, and the occasional taser. Not to mention the training to use them effectively. But why not? But why should they even bother when they can just roll over swaths of zombies and tanks, blast them with cluster bombs and Moabs, and mow them down with miniguns from the goddamn Air Force that every zombie flick seems to forget about? They could just roll over swaths of zombies and tanks and blast them with, everything. Literally. Really, even if zombies existed right now, the whole concept of zombie apocalypse is just laughable. Now, robots, on the other hand...